Lamar Jackson's ankle didn't just show up on Baltimore's injury report as another late-season inconvenience. It completely shifted the energy around this matchup and forced the Steelers to rethink every layer of preparation. He practiced on Wednesday, didn't talk to the media afterward, and by Thursday he was off the field entirely. That silence after practice wasn't normal for him, and now we know why. The ankle flared up again, adding to the hamstring issues, the lingering foot concerns, and everything else that has slowed him this year. You look at his tape from the first half of the season and you can literally see the difference. He hasn't had the same burst. His natural escape lanes have closed faster. His pressure-to-sack ratio has ballooned into something completely out of character for him. And that matters because Pittsburgh's pass rush punishes hesitation the way few defenses in the league can. But despite the headlines surrounding Lamar, the Ravens' real engine, the piece that broke the Steelers twice last season, is Derrick Henry. It wasn't scheme that beat Pittsburgh. It wasn't trick plays or unique formations. It was Henry lining up, taking the handoff, and dictating every physical aspect of the game. Nearly 170 rushing yards per meeting, more than 7 yards per carry, drives that were swallowed whole by one man refusing to be tackled. You felt it in the stadium. You felt it in the defensive huddle, and you could feel Baltimore gain confidence with every snap last season because Pittsburgh never made them change the script. That cannot happen this time. The Steelers know it. Terrell Austin knows it. Every defensive player knows it. Henry is different from the backs they faced the last few weeks because missed fits against him aren't just mistakes, they're disasters that echo through the entire game. If Pittsburgh's edges aren't sharp, if the linebackers are slow filling, if the interior can't anchor, Henry will set the tone again and squeeze every ounce of life out of this matchup. And if that happens, it won't matter who Baltimore starts at quarterback. The injuries on Pittsburgh's side just add another layer of intensity. TJ Watt missing Wednesday's practice sent an instant wave of panic across Steelers Nation, but the relief came quickly when he returned fully the next day. Patrick Queen was limited with a glute injury, but trending upward. James Pierre is moving through concussion protocol with positive signs after a full session. But the new concerns, Joey Porter Jr. popping up with an elbow issue and Kyle Duggar held out with a hand injury, those hit differently. Duggar is essential to the run fits against a back like Henry, and Porter's physicality at the line is a core part of how this defense handles Baltimore's receivers. Even Jalen Ramsey taking consecutive veteran rest days at this stage of the season isn't something you can ignore. And then came the wildest revelation of the week, Patrick Queen admitting that he and Minkah Fitzpatrick were battling severe food poisoning before last year's playoff game. Not discomfort, full-scale vomiting, hours in the shower, shaking, 3-4 bags before kickoff and another at halftime. He said he knew the plays coming but couldn't move fast enough to execute. Suddenly those missed tackles, those late reactions, those openings Henry found so effortlessly, everything snaps into place. With Minkah feeling the early symptoms too, the middle of the Steelers' defense was essentially fighting two opponents, the Ravens and their own bodies failing them. This week is different. The stakes are higher. The AFC North race is tighter. The opportunities are clearer. The margin for error is shrinking by the hour. Everything surrounding this matchup, Lamar's ankle flare-up, Henry's dominance, Pittsburgh's injuries, the frustration of last week's defensive collapse, comes together in a moment that can redefine the Steelers' season. So here's the real question of this first half of the story. With everything we now know about Lamar's condition, Henry's history against Pittsburgh, the Steelers' injury picture, and the weight of this matchup, do you believe this team is finally ready to flip the script this time? And if the Steelers are truly going to flip that script, it starts with confronting the exact moments that broke them last season and refusing to let history repeat itself. All week long behind closed doors, the focus has been on what Derrick Henry exposed in those previous meetings: hesitation at the second level, late fits, poor leverage, and a defensive interior that couldn't anchor against his downhill power. Coaches didn't sugarcoat it. Players didn't deny it. This wasn't about bad luck or unusual circumstances. It was about Baltimore dictating every physical exchange. And with Lamar Jackson entering this matchup hobbled by an ankle flare-up, the Ravens will lean even more heavily on Henry unless Pittsburgh forces them in another direction. This is where the Steelers' preparation and identity collide. They know exactly what Henry wants on early downs. They know he thrives against defensive fronts that aren't perfectly aligned. They know that if he gets to the second level with a full head of steam, everything starts to unravel. That's why Cam Hayward's leadership has been critical this week. He's been the voice demanding sharper communication, better pad level, and cleaner execution. Keanu Benton has been pushed to play like a seasoned veteran, not a young lineman still learning the craft. And at linebacker, Patrick Queen's urgency has been unmistakable. After revealing that he played the playoff game while barely able to stand, you can feel the determination from him to show what this defense looks like when he's fully functional. He and Minkah Fitzpatrick bring a totally different version of the middle of the field when they're healthy, and this matchup demands that level of impact. The uncertainty around Joey Porter Jr. and Kyle Duggar continues to shape the defensive plan. Porter's elbow could limit the physical punch he uses to control receivers at the line. Duggar's hand injury could affect his ability to strike and engage in the box. These aren't minor details when the opponent is built to test every inch of defensive toughness. If either one is limited, the Steelers will need to adjust coverages, rotations, and run fits on the fly. That places enormous responsibility on Jalen Ramsey and Jabril Peppers to stabilize the back end and disguise coverages well enough to slow Baltimore's play action. And looming over all of this is the quarterback situation on Baltimore's side. If Lamar tries to play through the ankle issue, he'll be limited in ways that directly feed the strengths of Pittsburgh's pass rush. He hasn't moved the same all year. The hamstring and foot issues have dragged on. His pressure-to-sack ratio is one of the clearest signs that he simply hasn't been comfortable escaping the pocket. That's where TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith have the chance to take over this game. Just an extra half-second of hesitation from Lamar could turn into a drive-ending sack, the type of moment that shifts momentum and forces Baltimore to abandon balance. But all of that depends on one thing. The Steelers cannot let Derrick Henry control the flow. If he becomes the centerpiece again, everything else Baltimore does becomes easier. He slows the game, shortens the field, buys them manageable third downs, and frustrates any defense that isn't perfectly synchronized. Pittsburgh has lived the consequences of that already. They know how demoralizing it feels when Henry churns out 6 yards on first down. They know how draining it is when 2nd and 3 keeps turning into 7-minute drives. This entire week has been about building a response that stands firm instead of bending. Yet while the focus is firmly on this matchup, the bigger picture refuses to stay quiet. The projection from Dane Bugler placing Ty Simpson in the Steelers' range at the top of the draft has people inside and outside the organization wondering what the long-term plan will look like. Simpson being the number 1 quarterback on Bugler's board and the number 2 prospect overall isn't something that goes unnoticed. His processing, poise, and fit in a pro-style system are exactly what NFL evaluators prioritize. But even with that conversation simmering in the background, the Steelers can't let any of it distract from the present. This team doesn't have the luxury of thinking about April right now. Their season is balanced on a knife's edge. This game against Baltimore isn't just about standings. It's about identity. It's about redemption. It's about proving that the defensive collapse against James Cook was a lesson, not a pattern. It's about showing that even with injuries, even with pressure, even with the season's narrative hanging in the balance, the Steelers can still step into a hostile environment and respond like a team that refuses to fold. Now it's your turn, Steelers Nation. With everything this matchup represents, with the stakes this high, and with the opportunity to reshape the season sitting right in front of them, do you believe Pittsburgh will rise to the moment? And if they do, how do you see this game unfolding inside a rivalry defined by physicality and pride? If you're still with me, make sure to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel for more breakdowns, and check out the videos appearing on your screen right now. And as we push deeper into what this matchup truly means, you start to feel that everything Pittsburgh has been wrestling with all season finally funnels into one defining confrontation. This isn't just another chapter in the rivalry. This is the point where the Steelers either reclaim their identity or watch the same problems that haunted them last year pull them under again. Every coach, every player, every veteran voice in that locker room understands what Derrick Henry represents in this moment. They've faced him healthy, they've faced him wounded, and they've faced him while battling their own bodies, but they've never faced him with as much clarity about what must be done as they do right now. Terrell Austin didn't spend this week reinventing the playbook. He spent it reinforcing the details that cost them last time. Leverage, pad level, angles, run fits, communication. It sounds basic, but those are the exact areas Henry punishes when any defense slips even a fraction. There's a reason Baltimore leaned on him so heavily last season, and there's a reason they'll do it again if the Steelers don't assert themselves from the opening snap. If Pittsburgh can clog early down runs, they immediately change the Ravens' comfort zone. If they can force third and longs, if they can shrink the play-action window, if they can make Baltimore feel uneasy about turning Henry into the centerpiece, then everything else in this game shifts. This is also where you need your stars to shine. TJ Watt returning to full practice wasn't just a relief, it was a necessity. He's the one player who can tilt a game plan, even if Lamar tries to play through that ankle issue. Alex Highsmith needs to win his edge with the same consistency he showed earlier in the season. Cam Hayward has to anchor the interior in a way that prevents Baltimore from washing the line down and creating easy cutback lanes. Keanu Benton's growth becomes critical here. He can't afford hesitation, not against a runner who turns soft contact into explosive gains. And then there's the secondary. With Kyle Duggar dealing with a hand injury and Joey Porter Jr. nursing that elbow, the Steelers might not be at full strength on the perimeter or in the box. That puts more responsibility on Jalen Ramsey to stabilize coverage, help disguise shells, and erase Baltimore's simplest reads. Jabril Peppers becomes a key piece in filling downhill if Duggar can't take on his usual workload. Minkah Fitzpatrick's presence, this time healthy and without the crippling food poisoning that derailed him in that playoff game, reshapes everything about the Steelers' defensive integrity. His range, anticipation, and ability to diagnose plays pre-snap are exactly what they'll lean on to prevent Baltimore from finding rhythm. But one of the biggest undercurrents to this matchup is the emotional one. When Patrick Queen admitted he could barely stand last season, when he described freezing in the shower, shaking uncontrollably, pushing through wave after wave of weakness just to take the field, you could feel how deeply that performance stuck with him. This isn't about revenge, it's about rewriting what his contribution to this rivalry looks like when he's fully himself. Pair that with Minkah determined to show what a healthy version of him can do against Baltimore's offensive structure, and you see a defense entering this game with purpose instead of fear. Of course, the noise surrounding Ty Simpson and his projection to the Steelers in the upcoming draft continues to hover like a shadow. Dane Bugler's evaluation, the #1 quarterback on his board, the #2 overall prospect, has stirred a level of intrigue that's impossible for fans to ignore. Simpson's processing, rhythm, footwork, and command of a pro-style offense make him the type of quarterback who could step into Arthur Smith's system and operate efficiently from day one. But that conversation, however fascinating it may be, can't be the focus inside the building. The Steelers don't have the luxury of thinking about what comes next. Not with the season teetering like it is. Not with this matchup capable of either reigniting everything or sending them tumbling into uncertainty. This game isn't about next year. It's about right now. It's about whether the Steelers can match Baltimore's physicality for 4 quarters. It's about correcting the defensive mistakes that have snowballed in recent weeks. It's about showing that last year's breakdown, complicated by illness, injuries, and structural failures, won't define who they are anymore. And above all, it's about proving that they can still impose their will in a moment when the season demands a response. Because if the Steelers are going to stay alive in the AFC North race, it starts with this game. It starts with tackling Derrick Henry behind the line instead of at the second level. It starts with suffocating Baltimore's early down runs. It starts with forcing a limited Lamar Jackson, or Snoop Huntley if Baltimore pivots, to throw into tight, disciplined windows. It starts with every unit performing with urgency instead of caution. Steelers Nation, this is where your team finds out who it really is. And now I want to hear it from you. With everything on the line, with every storyline converging, with every ounce of pressure focused on this matchup, do you believe this defense is finally ready to stand its ground and deliver the kind of performance that changes the arc of the season? Make sure to hit like if you're all in on this breakdown, subscribe for more Steelers coverage, and check out the videos on your screen for deeper analysis heading into this rivalry showdown. And as we keep pushing forward, the weight of this moment only becomes clearer. Every layer of this matchup carries a consequence, every mistake has a ripple effect, and every adjustment could be the difference between keeping the season alive or letting it slip through their fingers. The Steelers aren't walking into Baltimore searching for a miracle. They're walking in knowing exactly what went wrong, exactly what must be corrected, and exactly why this game demands a level of discipline they haven't consistently shown this year. The coaching staff spent the entire week drilling home the reality that physicality alone won't beat Derrick Henry. You can hit him hard, you can swarm him, but if you're not in the right gap, if your pad level isn't right, if you hesitate for a single beat, he'll turn a simple run into a momentum-stealing moment. That's why this preparation wasn't emotional, it was technical. The Steelers know Baltimore wants to test the same vulnerabilities they exploited last season. They know the Ravens will lean into double teams, down blocks, and those wide zone looks that create natural cutback lanes. And they know Henry thrives when a defense overreacts and fails to trust its assignments. This is where the presence of Cam Hayward becomes irreplaceable. He has spent years anchoring the identity of this defense, and games like this are exactly why he's still so vital. His responsibility is bigger than winning his one-on-one matchups. He's the stabilizing force who keeps the interior from collapsing. He's the communicator who helps reset alignments when Baltimore shifts late. He's the veteran who will not allow the defense to play soft or tentative. If Hayward wins the interior battle, everything behind him becomes clearer and faster. Behind the line, the linebackers carry the heaviest weight of all. Patrick Queen's urgency has been unmistakable. He has replayed last season's disaster too many times to allow it to happen again, especially now that he's healthy and not battling the invisible war inside his own body. His ability to diagnose the run, shoot gaps, and cut off Henry's momentum before it builds is going to define the tone of this game. And alongside him, the secondary must be ready to close alleys and prevent Henry from breaking into the open field, where he historically becomes nearly impossible to bring down. The unknown surrounding Kyle Duggar remains one of the biggest X factors. His physicality near the line of scrimmage is something Pittsburgh leans on heavily in matchups against power runners. If his hand injury limits him or forces him to miss time, the Steelers will have to lean more on Jabril Peppers, who plays with aggression but must stay sound against misdirection and play action. On the outside, Joey Porter Jr.'s elbow is more than a minor detail. His ability to punch, jam, and control the release of Baltimore's receivers is core to how the Steelers disrupt timing. If his power is compromised even slightly, the defense will need to rely more on technique and leverage rather than dominance at the line. And then there's Lamar Jackson. Whether he plays or not, whether he's mobile or not, the Steelers have to approach this game as if every snap is designed to minimize his ability to extend plays. Even though his movement has looked restricted all season and the ankle flare-up only reinforces that limitation, Pittsburgh cannot assume he'll be stationary. Their goal must be to collapse the pocket in a way that gives him nowhere to go. TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith have the opportunity to turn this matchup into chaos for Baltimore if they win early and often. If Lamar is limited, the Steelers can force him to hold the ball, and when that happens, sacks come quickly. The offense also has a responsibility in this matchup. They cannot afford quick 3-and-outs. They cannot keep putting the defense in positions where Henry gets more opportunities. Complementary football isn't a luxury this week, it's survival. Every sustained drive takes away touches from Henry. Every first down slows Baltimore's rhythm. Every minute the Steelers control the ball drains the energy from the Ravens' defense and forces them into uncomfortable adjustments. And while all of this is happening in the present, the future keeps tapping at the door. The Ty Simpson conversation is impossible to silence because of the implications it carries. When a quarterback is projected as the #1 passer in a class and the #2 overall prospect, especially one who fits so cleanly into what Arthur Smith wants to run, it naturally becomes part of the long-term conversation. His processing, mechanics, and command have the traits of a franchise-caliber quarterback. But the Steelers cannot allow that projection to distract from the urgency of now. They're fighting for more than standings. They're fighting for identity, for momentum, for the right to say this team still has a heartbeat in a season that has challenged them from every angle. Everything comes down to execution. Everything comes down to discipline. Everything comes down to whether the Steelers can rise to the physical and mental standard this matchup demands. They've seen what happens when they don't meet that standard. They've lived it, and now they have the opportunity to turn it into fuel instead of fear. Steelers Nation, this is the crossroads. This is the moment where every storyline, every injury, every revelation, every doubt, and every ounce of belief finally collide. The question isn't just whether the Steelers can win. The real question is whether they can redefine themselves in the process. Everything comes down to execution. Everything comes down to discipline. Everything comes down to whether the Steelers can